Hello, my name is Yaya. Thank you for tuning in to Trauma and God. First, let me say that the trauma that happened to you wasn't your fault. I know personally that healing from the black cloud of trauma is possible, but it takes time. Just as in nature, there's always sunlight behind a dark cloud. So it is for us. God is light and He's always there. We just have to find Him. In this series, I'll talk about things that hinder us from finding the light, things we can do that help us overcome obstacles. Today's subject is you will get lost in a snowstorm. I vividly remember the Christmas when I was 8 years old. We were living in the tropics far from Europe. Missionary friends from Norway had arrived to visit us, bearing with them Christmas gifts from our grandparents, including delicious chocolate and foods that we had longed for. On Christmas Eve, we ate those delicious foods and chocolates and opened our grandparents' gifts. My sister and I both got beautiful dolls. They were very tall. They must have come almost to our waist. They were really beautiful. I was very happy and I felt very loved by my grandparents. Well, I soon retired to my bedroom to play with my doll, leaving behind boring adult conversations about Indonesians' incursions on Dutch territory. Well, a few days later, we woke to pounding on our front door and the soldier telling us to immediately leave our home carrying only essentials. My mother wrestled our twin brothers in a suitcase and presumed us older girls would know what to do. We quickly slipped on our summer dresses and flip-flops and ran outside. Our whole community was standing around tables as soldiers registered our names, wanting to know how many in our family and if we were all together. Father was not with us. Troops stood with their backs to us, forming a loose cordon with rifles pointing out into the forest. There had been a great deal of shooting close to our community, and our lives were considered to be in grave danger. After riding in troop carriers and an army cargo plane, we boarded a commercial flight. I seem to think it was a DC-8, but I'm not sure. Still wearing the same dresses and flip-flops. This was no ordinary flight, but a repatriation flight. Every single passenger on the flight was a refugee. That day, my family lost their business, our home, all our possessions, our pets, our carefree life on the beach, and I lost my doll. Nothing would ever be the same again. My sister and I were seated in the first row on the plane, and I had the window seat. I was hoping and wishing that someone would remember that today was my 9th birthday. Well, a flight attendant pushed open the cabin curtain with one hand, holding a tray in the other with a pastry on it, and a KLM flight bag was lying next to it. She came to me, addressing me by my name. She wished me a very happy birthday. Well, actually, she said a very happy 9th birthday. She seemed to know a lot about me. Gave me the contents of the tray, and then asked the whole plane to join her in singing happy birthday to me. While rebuilding our life in a foreign country and learning a new language is hard, and finances were not always there. I understood, but every year I wondered if my birthday would be remembered. But no, Initially, I had bought you a larger Christmas present because your birthday is so close to Christmas excuse. Well, later I didn't even get that. The Christmas season only accentuated my feelings of being uncared for, unloved, not worth remembering, and definitely unwanted. I cried my way through it. Over the years, depression grew into an emotional snowstorm that set in at the end of October and didn't lift until February. I felt lost and blinded in the snow and couldn't find my way out. Today I was thinking how grateful I am that I can now say that I enjoyed the holiday season. But for a long time, this was not the case. I remember how not too long ago, when real snow lay deep on the ground and a bitterly cold wind blew, I was outside on playground duty at the school where I used to work. I wore a calf-length coat to keep warm. A little boy ran up to me. I knew him, and he was very serious and alarmed and said, Miss, you can't wear a coat like that. I tried to calm him down, and I quietly asked, why? And he said, because if you get lost in a snowstorm, we won't be able to find you. My coat was off-white in color. When I was young and in Norway with my grandparents around Christmas time, and the snow was deep and the trees covered in white, we enjoyed walks in the woods. That's what Scandinavians do. They love to go outside in all weathers. Our first instruction was easy. Grandfather would always say, stay on the path and walk in my footprints. Grandfather always led the way, making large footprints for us to follow in. One of my brothers usually had the urge to go off the path and step into virgin snow. One time the snow was so deep, he sank into a hole, and it took us a while to locate him. It was a little scary. Well, when we turned back to head home, Grandfather would add the next instruction. Now you can follow the red wool markers on the tree branches back home. As we were ahead of her, we had not paid attention to what my mother was doing. Behind us, she'd been carefully tying bits of red wool markers in the branches. Well, a major trauma can catch us unaware, especially when we're young and before we've had any experience on knowing how to handle trauma. Becoming a refugee caught me in an emotional snowstorm, and I was wearing white. I felt lost and completely invisible. There were no branches with red woolen ribbon tied to them, pointing the way out. Grandfather's footsteps were covered by fresh snow. I felt all alone and thought I would never find my way back to home. I habitually wept at Christmas time and got lost in my emotional snowstorm. When my children were born, I wanted to change and learn how to enjoy the Christmas season with them. So my husband and I set about doing what we could to make it a happy time for me. We created our own meaningful ways of celebrating Christmas, and my birthday, right after Christmas, was always remembered. Each way of celebrating became our figurative tying a red piece of wool in the tree marker point so that I would have some bearings and not lose myself on my way out of the snowstorm. What I didn't see at that time was that God had made footsteps for me to follow. And I had already tried to follow those footsteps. The shocking emotional snowstorm had covered over his footprints, but he hadn't left me. God had backtracked with me and was showing me where his footprints were and where to hang my directional red woolen markers in the trees so that I could find my way. God will not force anyone to go his way, to step in his footsteps. He only shows it to us, patiently waits for us to choose whether we will do so or not. As hard as I was working to change myself, life doesn't stand still. Days turn into years, and soon my children had grown up, gone to university, married, had babies. We were living far apart. More emotional changes were needed. Each change I made in myself was never enough. There was something only God could change, my heart. I needed to feel, not just know, in my head, how much God loved me. I still felt like the unloved refugee who was lost and not worth protecting and providing for. I could name the obvious reasons from childhood as to why this was the case, but even speaking them out didn't make a difference. That was until one day, unexpectedly, God intervened and not only told me how much he loved me, but I felt how much he loved me. Then I truly understood how much and how deeply I was loved by God. A short time later, I was with my counselor. I happily told her how I now felt God's love for me, and she was very pleased. She saw it as quite the milestone in my headway through my seasonal snowstorms. But this time I wanted to talk to her about being a refugee. I finally told her something only my husband had known up until that point, and that was that I still yearned for that doll that I had lost all those years ago, but I felt embarrassed and silly because I was now in my 50s. She gently told me that I wasn't being silly. The doll had in fact become symbolic for all that I had lost during that time. And I actually found myself sobbing about it for the first time in a long time. When I left, she told me to buy a beautiful doll for myself. I did as she said, although it felt very odd and slightly embarrassing to buy a doll for myself. Well, very soon after that, then the end of October approached, and I wondered how much my changes would affect my emotions when my snowstorm hit. The dreaded moment arrived, and the snowstorm didn't happen. My birthday came and passed, and I was still happy. You've probably realized that the world doesn't stop, doesn't stand still to respectfully mourn our loss with us. Each 24-hour day just keeps rolling on, as it has done since the beginning of time. Any loss is a personal heartache made so much worse when the day of its anniversary rolls around. So much plays into how much the loss affects us and how we find ways out of it, like our age, our life experience, how healthy our emotional balance is. But a loss is a loss and should never be measured against the scale of other losses. Your loss was bad, and that's all that matters. And there is a way out. My long-term goal was to find that place where I could say, it is well with my soul. In whatever season or situations I found myself in, I think I've achieved my goal. When another snowstorm hits me, I know how to find my way through it. God's footprints will be there, and I shall look harder for them than I did before, much harder. I will follow the red woolen markers I have previously tied to the trees and presume that God will tell me where to hang more when until I find my way home again. He's got me. He's looking after me. The memory of what happened when I was 8 is still there. Nothing is forgotten. But it no longer has a hold on me. I am wanted, loved, and found. Yay, success. God loves you with the same passion. He's always there for you. You just have to find him. Please subscribe and tell others if you found this vlog helpful. If this stirs things in you, please reach out and talk to someone. You may email me, Yaya, at traumaandgod@gmail.com, or even read my personal story, Snakes in the Loo, at Amazon Books. Help is available at the following: Suicide and Crisis Helpline, 1-800-273-TALK. Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network. Their helpline is 1-800-656-HOPE. God is for you, and so am I. I'll see you again soon. Thanks for listening.